Listen carefully, because what you're about to hear is not just another political headline. This is a warning that comes before a legal ruling that could shake global trade, markets, and your wallet. Donald Trump is saying there will be a mess ahead. And when someone who has been inside the system says that word, it usually means damage is already done behind the scenes. This is not about politics anymore. This is about power, money, and a system under stress. Stay with me, because once you understand what's really happening here, you won't see tariffs, courts, or markets the same way again. Before we go any further, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. This is the Archivist, where we don't chase noise, we preserve the signals others ignore. If you want clear, calm breakdowns of moments that history later calls turning points, you're in the right place. Now let's slow this down and unpack what's really going on. Trump's warning didn't come out of nowhere. It came at a moment when legal pressure, trade policy, and market confidence are colliding. Tariffs, for most people, sound boring. Just another government word. But tariffs are weapons. They are pressure tools. And when they are challenged in court, it means someone powerful believes the rules were bent, rushed, or abused. Trump saying there will be a mess ahead of a legal ruling is not random language. It's strategic. It prepares the public for chaos, it lowers expectations, and most importantly, it signals that the outcome may expose fractures inside the system that were never meant to be public. Here's what most media coverage won't tell you. Tariff battles are rarely about trade alone. They are about leverage, who controls supply chains, who absorbs pain, and who gets protected when things go wrong. When a tariff decision ends up in court, it means those questions have turned into legal liabilities. Behind closed doors, corporations hate uncertainty more than high costs. Markets can price in bad news. What they can't price in is confusion. And confusion is exactly what Trump is pointing toward. Think about timing. Legal rulings don't just affect laws, they affect confidence. A ruling against tariffs could open the door to refund claims, contract disputes, and retaliatory actions from other countries. A ruling in favor could confirm that executive power over trade is broader than many believed, setting a precedent that future presidents will use. Either way, something breaks. This is why insiders are nervous. This is why language like mess is being used instead of calm reassurances. When people in power stop pretending everything is under control, it usually means the cleanup will be expensive. Now let's talk about markets, because this is where it gets interesting. Markets are forward-looking machines. They don't wait for rulings. They move on expectations. And right now, expectations are unstable. Trade-sensitive sectors, manufacturing, agriculture, logistics, even tech hardware, all depend on predictable tariff structures. Change those rules suddenly and balance sheets start to wobble. Big money already knows this. That's why you see quiet repositioning. Not panic selling, not headlines, just subtle shifts. Capital moving into defensive assets, companies delaying guidance, executives choosing vague language on earnings calls. That's not coincidence, that's preparation. Trump's statement acts like a stress test. It forces everyone to ask, what if this really does turn into a mess? Now zoom out further. This legal ruling is not happening in isolation. It's happening at a time when global trade is already under strain. Supply chains are fragile. Geopolitical tensions are high. Debt levels are extreme. And voters are tired of economic promises that don't show up in their daily lives. Tariffs were originally sold as protection. Protection for jobs. Protection for industries. Protection for national strength. But protection always comes with a cost. And eventually, someone asks who paid it. Courts exist to answer those questions. But courts don't operate in a vacuum. Their rulings ripple outward. Through markets, through politics, through public trust. Trump understands this dynamic better than most. He knows that even a legal win can still produce chaos. Because once the debate moves from policy to legality, the narrative shifts. Suddenly it's not, is this good? It's, was this allowed? That's a dangerous shift for any system built on confidence. Let's talk about manipulation, because this is where things get uncomfortable. Markets don't just react to news. They react to how news is framed. Warnings like this shape behavior. They influence timing. They create cover. When volatility increases, some players benefit, others get crushed. Insiders don't need certainty. They need movement. This is why moments like this matter. They create volatility windows. And volatility windows are where wealth transfers happen quietly. Retail investors see headlines. Institutions see opportunity. Now imagine a legal ruling drops and it contradicts expectations. Or it opens legal gray areas. Or it triggers appeals. Suddenly, months or years of uncertainty are locked in. Trade policy freezes, deals stall, prices swing. That's the mess. And here's the part most people miss. Legal systems move slowly, markets move instantly. That mismatch creates pain. Companies must react before clarity arrives. Workers feel it before politicians explain it. Consumers pay before anyone takes responsibility. Trump's warning is not just about the ruling, it's about the lag that comes after. History shows us this pattern again and again. Big economic disruptions are rarely announced clearly. They arrive wrapped in legal language, procedural debates, and unexpected consequences. Think about past trade shocks. Think about sudden tariff changes. Think about retaliatory measures. The headlines always sound technical, but the effects are emotional. Fear, anger, confusion. That's why this moment matters. Now let's talk about power. Tariffs sit at the intersection of executive authority, legislative oversight, and judicial review. When courts step in, it means that balance is being tested. No branch likes losing ground, so tension increases. Trump framing the outcome as a mess preemptively challenges the legitimacy of whatever comes next. It tells his supporters to expect disorder. It pressures institutions to defend themselves. And it ensures that no matter the outcome, trust takes a hit. Trust is the real currency here. Once trust erodes, markets demand higher premiums. Businesses demand stronger guarantees. Voters demand stronger leaders. And systems become less flexible. This is how rigidity sets in, and rigid systems break. Now ask yourself this: why warn now? Why not wait? Because once a ruling is out, the narrative is set. Before a ruling, language can still shape expectations. This is narrative positioning. It's not accidental. And it works. Media outlets repeat the word mess. Analysts speculate. Social media amplifies fear. Volatility creeps in before any legal text is even released. That's power without policy. For everyday Americans, this matters more than it seems. Tariffs affect prices. Prices affect inflation. Inflation affects rates. Rates affect jobs, mortgages, and debt. This is not abstract. A legal ruling on tariffs can change how much you pay without you ever reading a court document. That's why the Archivist exists, to slow this down, to connect the dots, to preserve context when everything feels rushed. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. No matter how this ruling goes, the system doesn't return to normal. That word no longer applies. The precedent alone changes behavior. Companies plan differently. Governments negotiate differently. Investors hedge differently. And once that shift happens, it doesn't reverse easily. Trump's warning is a signal flare, not necessarily of disaster, but of transition. Transitions are messy by nature. They expose weaknesses. They reward preparation and punish complacency. If you're still watching, you already understand this is bigger than a headline. So what should you watch next? Watch language. Watch tone. Watch what officials say and what they avoid saying. Watch markets that move without clear news. Watch delays, extensions, and appeals. Those are signs the mess is spreading quietly. And remember this: the most dangerous moments in economic history are not the crashes everyone sees coming. They're the slow legal and structural shifts that change incentives before anyone rings an alarm. This is one of those moments. As this unfolds, don't get distracted by noise. Focus on structure. Focus on incentives. Focus on who benefits from uncertainty and who pays for it. That's how you read history while it's being written. If you found this breakdown useful, share this video with someone who still thinks tariffs are just a political talking point. And leave a comment below. Do you think this legal ruling stabilizes the system, or does it open the door to even more chaos? I read the comments, and they help shape what we archive next. This is the Archivist. Stay sharp, stay curious, and don't ignore warnings when they're whispered before they're screamed. Now, let's go deeper, because the real story doesn't sit on the surface of tariffs or courtrooms. It sits underneath in how systems react when authority is questioned. When Trump says there will be a mess, he's not just talking about headlines, he's talking about friction. Friction between institutions that were never designed to move smoothly once trust starts to crack. Here's something most people don't realize. Trade policy works only when everyone believes the rules will be enforced consistently. The moment courts get involved, that belief weakens. Not because courts are wrong, but because predictability disappears. And predictability is the oxygen of global trade. Take that away, and even strong economies start to cough. Behind the scenes right now, legal teams inside multinational corporations are running scenario models, not public models, quiet ones. What happens if tariffs are rolled back retroactively? What happens if exemptions are challenged? What happens if future administrations use this ruling as a weapon instead of a tool? These questions don't wait for answers. They trigger action immediately. This is where insider behavior matters. When uncertainty spikes, insiders don't panic. They hedge. They diversify exposure. They move capital in ways that look boring on the surface but tell a very clear story underneath. Reduced expansion, shorter contracts, temporary hiring freezes, delayed investments. These are not signs of collapse. They are signs of caution. And when caution spreads, growth slows without anyone officially announcing it. That's how a mess begins without a single dramatic moment. Trump understands media psychology. He understands how one word can frame weeks of coverage. Mess implies chaos without defining it. It gives supporters a reason to distrust outcomes and critics a reason to brace for fallout. It keeps everyone alert but uncertain, and uncertainty is powerful. Now think about timing again. This warning comes when markets are already sensitive. Debt is high, rates are tight, consumers are stretched. There's no cushion for error. Even small disruptions now feel bigger than they would have a decade ago. So when a legal ruling threatens to rewrite part of the trade rulebook, the reaction multiplies. Foreign governments are watching too. They're not waiting for press conferences. They're reading the same signals. A ruling that weakens tariff authority invites challenges. A ruling that strengthens it invites retaliation. Either direction increases tension. This is why trade wars rarely end cleanly. They morph. They shift shape. They move from economics to law, from law to politics, from politics to public opinion. And public opinion is the hardest thing to control. If consumers start believing prices are unstable because leaders are fighting in court, spending changes, confidence drops. And once confidence drops, recovery becomes harder, even if the legal outcome is technically resolved. That's the hidden cost no one budgets for. Now, let's address something uncomfortable. The system is designed to absorb messes, but only up to a point. When too many pressures stack at once, small legal decisions act like triggers. Not causes, but triggers. This ruling is one of those triggers, not because tariffs alone define the economy, but because they symbolize control. Who decides? Who enforces? Who pays the price when policies fail? Those questions are now being asked in a courtroom instead of a campaign speech. That's a shift in battlefield. Trump's warning is also a message to institutions themselves. A reminder that public perception matters, that legitimacy is fragile, that rulings don't exist in isolation from political reality. Whether you agree with him or not, ignoring that dynamic is dangerous. Now pause for a moment and think like a historian. Years from now, people won't remember the legal technicalities. They'll remember how this period felt. Unstable, tense, uncertain. Full of warnings that sounded exaggerated until they weren't. That's why the Archivist focuses on moments like this, because they look small while they're happening. If you're finding value in this perspective, this is a good moment to remind you to stay subscribed. This channel exists to track these slow-moving shifts before they become obvious in hindsight. Let's talk about market psychology again, because this is where manipulation accusations often arise. When warnings precede rulings, they can move markets, even unintentionally. Traders react to tone. Algorithms scan language. Volatility increases not because of facts, but because of expectation. Some people call that manipulation. Others call it reality. The truth is, modern markets respond to narrative as much as data. And legal uncertainty creates narrative space, space where speculation thrives. That's why you'll see analysts disagree wildly in the coming days, not because they're confused, but because the range of outcomes has widened. Wide ranges mean more risk. More risk means more cautious behavior. And cautious behavior, spread across millions of decisions, slows everything down. This is how a legal ruling becomes an economic event. Now here's the part no one likes to admit. No administration, past or future, wants courts deeply involved in trade policy. It complicates leverage. It slows response time. It exposes internal contradictions. So regardless of how loud the political arguments get, there will be quiet efforts to limit damage. Side agreements, delays, interpretations, clarifications. That's the cleanup phase of the mess Trump is warning about. But cleanups are never free. They consume attention, capital, and trust. And while leaders are cleaning up, other problems don't pause. Debt still grows. Infrastructure still ages. Global competition still intensifies. This is why overlapping crises are so dangerous. If you're still watching, you already understand this isn't about predicting disaster. It's about recognizing fragility. Fragile systems don't collapse instantly. They wobble. They shake. They test limits. And warnings like this one are part of that testing process. As this story continues to unfold, don't look for one dramatic moment. Look for accumulation. Small signals adding up. Legal uncertainty here. Market hesitation there. Political rhetoric everywhere. That's how you know the mess is real. In the next part, we'll connect this ruling to longer-term patterns you've seen before. Patterns that repeat whenever authority, money, and public trust collide. Until then, share this video with someone who still thinks court rulings don't affect everyday life. And leave your thoughts in the comments. Do warnings like this prevent chaos, or do they create it? This is The Archivist, and this story is far from over.